Welcome back. I'm still working on several of my weaknesses, one of which is seeing forced checkmate patterns on the board. Here in this recent rapid game, I had on move 18 a mate in 4. If only I had stopped for a moment. As you can see, I think the timestamp is visible down at the bottom. I had 8 minutes left. Plenty of time to look around and check. This position arrived from a Scandinavian, which is the d5 response to e4. My opponent took as they're supposed to, but here played the inaccuracy, allowing me to get the pawn back, and they took the knight. And I have a slight lead in development, and according to the engine, equality. Okay. I thought play proceeded fairly normally. A couple of inaccuracies as the game went on, but I got my king to safety. We're on move 9. I decided to go ahead and attack. Since my king is castled, I have this rook behind the pawn. I have another rook ready to bring over. Decided to start making my moves. I wasn't too worried about this because my queen is guarding that pawn. Now here it says this is a mistake. I didn't see it much as a mistake. It offers to trade with this bishop as well as protecting this one. My opponent took that pawn, which again wasn't too worried about because that just got the pawn out of my way, which is kind of what I was hoping for. It does add extra pressure to this pawn, which I guess could be a problem, but I block the bishop from attacking that pawn and add another layer of protection to this bishop at the same time. So that bishop retreats. Looks like it's attacking my queen, but instead it just gives me the bishop. So I took it. I think they should have taken back with their queen. Was that? Yeah, they should have taken back with their queen. That was a blunder there. But I don't know if that was my best move or not, but I'm removing another barrier to this rook. Remember, the bishop took away my pawn, and I'm sacrificing my bishop for their pawn. And they took it, which now leaves this unguarded, so I take it. My only good move in this position. The king comes forward. That's their best move. And now I should bring this other rook over, which I did. So I'm getting better. They put that rook there. Now here I was supposed to take that rook, but I didn't. I thought, wait, what if they just take me? Okay, then I should have my queen here, and we'd be getting really close to mate. So I moved my queen down. Now, I have a slight advantage, even though my opponent is up material. Because remember, I sacrificed my bishop here. My opponent is up 2 points of material, a piece for a pawn. I didn't take, but my opponent played that. And if you're many of my viewers turn out to be higher rated than me, more knowledgeable, so maybe you can look at this. If you want to pause, that's fine, to see where the mating sequence is. I didn't see it, and in fact I thought it might be somewhere else. I played queen to g4 check, which turned out to not be the best move at all. My idea was, not only is it a check, which would force the king, I thought, back here. I mean, it could go back there, but I thought it would probably go this way. Once I checked here, I figured the king would go that way. And then there would be only the knight would be protecting this rook. So I could take the rook, and if the knight took back, then I would take the queen. And once they retook my queen, then I would take the knight. That was my plan. Yes, I calculated that far in advance and played queen to g4, but I didn't see the mate on the board. Now, I'm going to pop up the engine here. It's visible right there. Okay, it says I need to take this rook now. And I didn't see that. I guess I didn't think of it because the knight is obviously guarding the rook. There's 2 defenders on that rook, the knight and the king. So if I take it and they take back, and I take back, and they get both my rooks, and they're already up material. That's, I guess, why I didn't consider it. But if I take the rook, it doesn't matter, apparently, whether they go back or take. If they take with the knight, I have this check, and that prevents the king from running this way because my queen is guarding that square. And the king has only two choices, g1 or h1. Now, if it goes there, obviously that's mate. If it goes to g1, I take the knight, and that's mate because my bishop is guarding that square. Okay, now again, let's back up. There were a couple of different possibilities here once I take the rook, because the knight doesn't have to take. The king could go back this way. Now, if that's the case, I have a couple of paths. One's a little longer. It looks more direct, but it does take a little longer, and that's to check with the queen on h3. The faster way is to check here because my bishop, again, is guarding f2. Now, if the king moves over, well, that's checkmate in the corner with the rook. Because the knight would block, but then I would just take it, right? Okay. If the king goes this way, then queen to g4 is mate. So basically, I had that position locked up no matter what happened once they made that move. Now, if they didn't make that move, if, for example, they played knight to g5, I mean, I still have a slight advantage here, but if they play knight to g5, look at that. That's a fork of two of my main pieces. I'm not sure exactly what I how I would have responded to that situation. I probably would have taken the rook, so that if they took my queen, I would have then taken their queen. And if they took back, then I would have taken their knight. I don't know. I think I might have come out slightly ahead there. But instead of playing that, they played the rook here. I've got to be able to see a couple of moves in advance, because you saw what I did calculate with my move queen to g4. I calculated all sorts of stuff, like the king moving away and me taking the rook and them taking back and me taking the queen and them taking back and me getting the knight. If I calculated that far, I need to be able to calculate this far. That even if they take and I don't have a mate, it's still a rook for a rook. And I guess that's what slowed me down, is because I was down material and I didn't see how powerful that is. Because now this knight's just hanging. So I was going to get the rook and the knight for that rook, even if it didn't result in mate, which it does, because of this and this and this and this. Okay, I'm working on this. I'm going through these motions and seeing these squares in order to drill it into my brain. And thank you for paying attention. Thank you for watching, all of those of you who do. And one quick note before I leave, I don't know how regular my schedule is going to be throughout this summer. When I started this channel back in the fall, October or something like that, my kids were in school. Well, now they're out of school and they're going to be home a lot. So they're home right now, and I just had to tell them to be quiet for a few minutes while I did this video and while I analyzed these games. So I don't know how regular. I might not be able to do a video every day like I have been doing, but we're going to try. And this is one of the things I am going to continue working on, is learning to recognize how much of a mate I have here. My plan, which I did, turned out to be pretty good. It's, as you can see on the engine, like if the king goes to the wrong place, I'm still going to have a mate in 4. But the king went to the right place here. And I did go ahead and take this now. And the knight did go ahead and take back. And I did end up going here. But now the king escapes this way, which it couldn't have done before. And I did get a knight out of it. And I have an even bigger advantage than I did back before my opponent blundered the mate sequence. And I did end up going on to win this game. But I won the game in, I'm going to scroll down the move list, 58 moves. I checkmated after 58 moves. When instead this was move 18, and I had a forced mate in 4. So I could have been over in 22 instead of 58. As it turned out, when I did get to 58 moves, when I checkmated there, I had only 2 minutes left on the clock. But wouldn't it have been much nicer to have seen that mate and checkmated with 8 minutes left on the clock? So, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.